This is the event safety and emergency procedures. So real quick, just to introduce ourselves, Brian, go for it.
I'm Brian McAuliffe. I'm the Director of Risk Management here at Willow Creek Community Church. Been here 19 years. So started as the Director of Finance, then was CFO and Director of Operations for another 12. And it was the stuff that kept me awake at night, all the risk stuff, especially with 7 campuses now that we're at. And we created this department about 5 years ago. It was my assistant and I, and just been growing. And it's anything that can cause an issue, I cover it. And having operational and financial background really helps. That way I can deal with everything throughout the church. So no 2 days are the same.
And my name's Chris, and I worked alongside Brian here at Willow for about 5 years. We were in the trenches and copyright stuff. And then now I'm out in Denver at Cherry Hills Community Church. And so kind of I don't know much about safety and stuff like that. Brian does a lot. But the idea came about from me as a TD wanting to learn how I can make sure that my team is supporting my auditorium back home in the best possible way if an event were to happen. So last year after the Las Vegas stuff happened, I had emailed Todd and said, hey, is there any validity to having a event safety course or something like that for churches? And I think there was some sort of poll that Philo did on Instagram, and so based on the responses of the poll, we're like, yeah, let's go and do it. So this is the first time that we're doing this class, so we'll see how it goes. We're really dependent upon your guys' questions just to help guide us. One of the things Brian and I were talking about is everyone comes to these conferences with one question that they want to ask. So we would definitely want to leave some room for Q&A and that kind of thing. But otherwise, we're just going to kind of go over what stuff we know and what kind of things we've done at our own churches. So that is why the breakout. That's why we're doing the breakout. Let me pull up my notes. Okay, cool. So anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good.
Okay. So security policy and protocols.
Well, you want to do context.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the kind
of... Well, I wanted to add the context,
Go for
though.
it. Bring it.
One of the reasons is, and you all know it, is your pastors won't know what to do and they don't care. So it's going to be important for people who have any kind of technical skills to be able to put something together. So that's why I'm glad you're doing this. Number 2, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training. So, whatever happens, and when it breaks loose, people are not going to rise. What do you know? How do you do it? That's where the training and rehearsal and stuff comes in. So that's why it's important. And when you don't plan, chaos gets magnified. Chaos is bad enough, but when there's no planning, it gets even worse. And the other thing, when you have to deal with the 20/20 hindsight seagulls, they come squawking in after the fact and said, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so, a lot of it is just preparing for the inevitable that you hope never happens. But then if it does, you've practiced, you've rehearsed, you're ready to go.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so security policy and protocols. Let's see. Having a policy protocol in place for receiving details from the congregation. So does Willow have that in place just for receiving feedback from the congregation?
Yeah, we have it in multiple levels, and it's the key is who's going to do what. You guys are taking care of certain things. I have a security team that are taking care of certain things. If you have guest hosts, that are welcoming people, they're going to take care of certain things. And so you want to make sure that every one of those groups has some method of getting information, to them, whether they have security concerns or there's something else going on. And so that's why, forms of communication between the teams, the teamwork is so important. I mean, we've really worked on that the last couple of years, the communication between our guest services team, guest hosts, the production team, our security team, all of that working together. And one of the things that we've done with our guest hosts, our security guys understand a lot of it, but we have a great connect with FBI and DHS, and we got some of their training, and we took their 20-page training and brought it down to 3 notes and trained our guest services team, and it comes down to 3 things: observe, assess, and act. OAA, and that's what they do. Whenever they start the guest meetings every weekend, they go OAA. Everybody reminds me. And we have seen, since we've trained them, on this, they're just interacting with us all the time. They're seeing odd bags, they're seeing weird clothing, they're seeing weird behavior in people that they didn't look at before. And then, we've done some of it too with the production teams here, and they're starting to see things. And they even gone to the fact, Troy Bartholomew, who you probably met, or he's done any trainings here too. Troy has gotten that eye now, so if his camera people see something, they will just hone in on a person and just keep an eye on that person and let us know, and then we can watch from one of the cameras too and see things. So that who's doing what, how are you communicating is so vital.
I think to back up to make sure that that you have a policy or a procedure in place to receive that feedback, though. Correct. If someone sees something and they take it to a guest ministries host or take it to somebody on your team and then they don't know what to do with that information, then that information falls by the wayside. So I think to make sure that there's a policy and a protocol. Hey, someone sees something, they've observed something, they come to somebody on your staff, on your team. Now what do you do with that information? Who do you then take it to make sure that the problem is escalated? So.
And I know the production team here in the booth, they have a radio that's on our channel. So if they get anything, Troy will call us on the radio and say, hey, we've heard this, we've seen this, what do you want us to do? How do we want to interact? And then we work together and figure it out. So, but you're right, it's just, who do you go? What do you do? Understanding radio channels. What form of communication? We use Slack as a great tool, so that if we don't want to put something on the radio, Slack is an app you can get. It's an instant messaging thing, and you can create different channels. So we've created one for each service. The 5:39, 11:15 each has its own channel. We're sending information back and forth. It also allows us to send pictures back and forth if we've got something going on, or they see something, Troy will get us a picture and we can get it out to the team. It's just, figuring out how to use some of the great tools that are out there. So,
and I think I connected with our local sheriff a couple weeks ago just to kind of pick his brain and get some data points for this class. And on this point, he said that your congregation is going to be your biggest source of feedback, right? So there's going to be in our church back in Denver, we do 1,000 people per service, right? Well, that's 1,000 eyes that are around the room. So your congregation is your biggest source of getting feedback and what the problems are. So,
and when events happen, sensitivity goes way up. So for these next couple weeks now, after the shooting in Texas, people are going to be watching this stuff, and they're going to be, alerting us. We have people that wander out in the lobby. That we have local police that sit in the lobby. So one of the guest hosts, they're going to let somebody know when somebody's acting weird or they're seeing something. A lot of times someone's bringing in a camera bag, or people bring in luggage because they're traveling and stuff. But it's really incredible that if they have an outlet to get to, they will get the information. So.
Cool. All right, so we just kind of alluded to a little bit about that, but let's keep going on the.
I was just going to say too, and so one of those things, we did some training in the auditorium. We just brought in a bunch of guns, different caliber with blanks, just to find out what it sounded like to shoot a gun off in the auditorium, because we had never experienced that. So, and we did it in three different. We did it with a church quiet. Then production was there, so they turned on a speaker so we could hear what a gunshot was like with a speaker, and then with the music on. And it just changed our perspective on how we were going to have to deal with things in the room. But the cool thing was, with them in the room, they're like, oh, we got to figure out what we're going to do. And so Troy came up with the acronym LAST. So I don't know if you had that on your thing at all, but it's
I have the evacuation procedures. Is that within that document?
I don't know. No, this is brand new, so
okay.
I don't think he's got it written down yet. But they're developing like a one button. You push a button, and the lights go on, audio goes out, the shades go up, and the TV goes off. So if there's some major incident like that, that way, because it's too hard to cross-train everybody in all the different. If you got audio guys not going to understand the lighting board, and so if somebody gets hurt or somebody passes out or has a heart attack, how do you deal with all this stuff? So they're creating a last button, and almost like a Staples That Was Easy kind of button, so that something happens, they hit that, and it takes care of all those issues. So it's just fun when we do training and they got something out of it. Now they're developing protocols out of it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to just a connection to local law enforcement and just how that looks and how that's beneficial. So Brian, you talked about just kind of your monthly meeting with local law enforcement. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I first got here, we did not have a good relationship with the local police. And then we got a new chief in. I invited him over for coffee. And now he and I meet the first Wednesday of every month. And then the fire chief found out about the meetings, and now he joins us. So, I have this.
Really just a way to get free coffee.
Yeah, it's probably free coffee.
Coffee and donuts.
But it's been incredible because they'll update us on what's happening in the community that we might need to know about. We'll let them know what's happening. And now we've developed a calendar, a Google Docs calendar. So we're sending them out 3 months in advance of the things that we know, because then that helps them plan. Like, they know if we got graduations or we've got something else or a concert, they're like, okay, then we got to start planning our schedule so that they've got the right number of guys on. And the relationships develop so that I have his cell phone, he has my cell phone. It's 24/7. We can call him about anything. But remember, no matter how big or small the department is, that's all you've got. So you got to learn to play nice together in the sandbox. And so that relationship, we've been very hospitable. We created a closet for them. So, we get a little bit of fall weather around here. And so in the wintertime, they come in, they put their boots, their coveralls, all that stuff in the closet. We've set up an account at Dr. B's, free coffee, whatever they need, and now they're wandering around. 10 years ago, that wouldn't have worked. To have, in our culture here at Willow, to have police in the main lobby wouldn't have worked. And now I've got 3 or 4 guys sitting out there, and it works really well. People are coming up to them all the time saying, glad you're here. And they park their cars by the entrances and then come in. And half the people that do these things at churches or any kind of school, they're Chicken Littles. So if they see a police car sitting right outside the entrance or 3 or 4 cops sitting there in uniform, they're going to turn around and go someplace where it's easier to deal with it. So
I think when Brian was talking to me, we were on a conference call a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about the closet. I felt that was a genius, just kind of handshake and extending of arm or of hand to the people that are protecting and coming in. So it's definitely something that I'm going to take away and come back to my team and.
Well, what's interesting because what Will's been going through. We had all these family meetings here, and those guys came in. And they attended the meetings because they feel like they're part of the church now. They're in the lobby all the time. They know all of our security team. They know most of our guest hosts that are at the main doors. I mean, this is not just a job for them anymore. So it's changed their attitude about how they protect this place. And it's so that's that. And we've done tours with them. We've opened up our facility for training, whatever kind of training they want to do that will serve them. If they want to do rapid deployment training, so they know the facility, and then we open up rooms like this if they want to do their own training. We had, they did their, the applications for new officers. Gave them a room for that, and did, whatever they need, that they don't have. We try and set that up. It's just going to enhance that relationship. That when we need them, we know they're going to be there.
Yeah. Okay, so Brian just touched on it a little bit. So just kind of allow your facility for training purposes. So at Cherry Hills, we actually do an annual. The auditorium is kind of closed off, and they come in and do SWAT training. So the local Douglas County is what county out there. They come in and do a full day worth of SWAT training. So they're up in the catwalks, they're everywhere in our auditorium, and they're doing training. But they're also familiarizing themselves with our facilities, so that if something bad were to happen, their entire SWAT team department knows what the ins and outs of the facility. The other cool thing that came about from this a couple years ago was they actually then connected with us after the training and said, hey, here are your weak points. This door doesn't have a lock on it. This door needs to have a lock on it, because if a sniper gets up into the catwalks, it's all over. Like, the catwalk is like the premier location for a sniper, right? So let's make sure that door gets locked. The other thing that I learned so this is a picture of the auditorium at Cherry Hills. And I don't know if you can see, the picture's a little dark. I apologize. And I can't do that. But our side screens, there we go. Our IMAG screens are right here in the picture. So this is our stage, right? IMAG screens on either side. And this is our rear projection screen. So there's a projection room back here. The other thing that we found out, and there's just a staircase that goes up to the projection room from backstage with a door, right? The SWAT training provided us a way of knowing that the projection room was also another vantage point for a sniper. So let's make sure that the door going to the projection room is locked and closed, because all they got to do is peel back that projection material just a little bit, and then they have full coverage of the entire room. And it was like one of those things that's like, duh, yeah, so let's get a lock on that room. So anyway, just those little kinds of things that we learned from hosting and doing the SWAT training. So, okay. So
it's great because it's free, because there's a lot of people out there that will charge you to come in and do that same kind of site assessment, whereas
Yes.
your local police, again, it just, they'd love to come in and do it for free because they need to know what they're up against.
Yep. Okay, so let's see. What about so both of us at Cherry Hills and Willow, we both hire police, but we also, do you guys hire just an outside security firm?
No, so we hire the police to do all of our entrances, and then they come in and, they're sitting in here doing that. We actually have uniformed police from South Barrington, our local police department, but then we have to have sheriffs here because they work a county road. The main light out here is county. So, but those guys are all off duty, so they're kind of plain clothes. Our security team is all volunteers. About 47 guys right now, all sorts of backgrounds, DHS, FBI, ATF, local police, all sorts of stuff. And they love being able to use their gifts, here. A lot of them are retired. Some of them are still functioning. So our whole security team is volunteers right now.
Nice. So that's it. We'll get into that in a little bit. At Cherry Hills, so we actually hire, so we have Douglas County Sheriff. I think we have 3 or 4 on site. And then we also have an outside security firm that comes in, and there's a couple plainclothes officers that are strategically placed around the auditorium. I think probably within the first 10 rows, I think, so that if anyone wants to make a move on the stage, they're within the first 10 rows so they can stop it as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really protecting. There's 2 things you got to protect: is the stage, because that's where things are going to happen. And every shooting you've seen in a church is happened at the stage. The other is the offering, and just and doing your own kind of counter surveillance to see if somebody's watching you in your offering process and how are you securing it, and then we secure that too, and our team makes sure that that's safe and out of the way.
Yeah. So I mentioned to you I connected with a local sheriff a couple weeks ago. One of his points of encouragement was to vet. If you are looking into hiring an outside security firm, vet them out. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about security. How in the world am I going to know even if I do vet them out, I go and ask them a bunch of questions, how am I going to know if they're really, worth it? He said to call the local sheriff's department, call your local law enforcement and say, hey, I am considering hiring this company. What do you know about them? What do you think about them? Are they good? And he said, he goes, please tell everybody to lean into the local law enforcement because they are there to help. Brian mentioned just a second ago about there are companies out there that you can pay money and hire to come in and do an assessment of your facility. Call up your local law enforcement. They'd be happy to come in and just walk your building with you, point out your weak spots, and it's free. You don't need to pay $5,000 for an outside firm to come in and do that. You may want to later, but as a start off, just call up your local law enforcement. So we hire an outside security firm, but just make sure that you vet them out if you're going to go that route. Let's see.
Yeah, just so you know, in all of our volunteers, we dress the same way as the congregation. So the police in the lobbies are in uniform, and then sheriffs, but then the rest of my team is all dressed the way anybody else was. And now we just created, because we've had this issue, we've created lanyards that say security, and we have our own ID badges on them. Because when we've had to deal with people, they want to know who we are, So now we had to create that. So we keep it tucked in our shirt, though. So we just, we try not to let people know who we are. The element of surprise usually works really good. It's surprised a few people who've tried to come at the stage when all of a sudden somebody jumps up and stops them. So it's been really good. So
nice. Okay, Brian, you touched on volunteers. So at Cherry Hills, we're still kind of building up our volunteer base, so to speak. You guys have 47. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about what kinds of things you do to train those volunteers, what kind of opportunities you offer them as far as developing them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Again, the thing I'm blessed with is most of them, probably 80% of them, have either military or police, some kind of law enforcement experience, which really helps because then they give us guidance on what we should be teaching the guys that don't. I'm obviously not the brawn of the team, so most of these guys are very big guys, and the ones that aren't don't have law enforcement experience, are people who have been around Willow a long time, people that we know and trust. So the key is going to be, people say competency, but really it's chemistry and character on a security team, because they're going to really depend on each other, and the pastors are going to be depending on us to protect them. So the team is going to have to work together well. So you want a team of people that are going to work really well together. So you're really going to, when you're interviewing these people, you want to make sure you're getting the right people. You're not looking for Barney Fife. There's a lot of, and that's why you have to be really careful how you build the team. We don't advertise it. We don't anything. It's all word of mouth. People who know people, or people we've encountered who we think would be good, that kind of thing. Because you just want to make sure you've got the right people out there. Because the majority of them conceal carry, we're doing, our own. We're doing a licensed tactical training, pistol training that we hire out, and then we've now set up a thing with a local range. So the third Monday of every month, we have the range, and so I have 3 guys on the team who are, really well-seasoned marksmen who are going to start doing training for their team. So that's just because we carry that we're going to do that. But there's, we're doing use of force training. We're doing the observe, assess training. Whatever we can get our hands on from the FBI and DHS, there's a ton of stuff. You just go on the website, and there's a ton of stuff out there that you can get to help train these guys. And, they're anxious for it. They want to, learn whatever they can about how to protect it. And then it's just training them on what your protocols are. What's every position doing? Because we have a bunch of different positions on who's doing what, why are you doing it, why it's important, what are you going to do, who do you connect with, and then who's going to take whose place. Because if you have somebody in the front stage and somebody acts up, you got to get them out there. Now you've got an open spot. So you develop rotations of who's covering what. It's stuff we go over. We have a pre-service meeting before every service. We meet probably about 45 minutes before every service. Go over what's happening that weekend, do some kind of small training, something we've gleaned from, FBI, DHS, 5 to 10 minute training. Then we pray together, and then we go out, and then we watch the entrances. So half an hour before the services, we're all around the building watching people coming in, so that we know who's coming in and what could look odd. So that's, just getting those kind of skills to them. So, and I found, too, with volunteers, we do a big kind of banquet every November around before Christmas to celebrate, but then we just had a rash of meetings that we had to cover and stuff. So last weekend we did dinner for the Saturday night team and breakfast for the 2 Sunday teams. And it's just, if you feed them, they will come.
Yeah.
Yep.
The cool testimony that I just heard back home was just last weekend or 2 weeks ago. Our guest ministries director witnessed our sheriffs praying over somebody. So most of the sheriffs that we hire or that are on site are not believers, but just because they are there every single weekend, they're starting to believe, and they're starting to become Christians, right? And so it was a cool story that they noticed somebody in distress walking out of the auditorium at the, I think, middle of the service or something like that, and so they approached them and said, "Hey, is everything okay?" And something was not okay, and so then this group of sheriffs, instead of detaining somebody, they prayed over this person. So obviously they probably assessed and made sure that nothing was wrong with them, but it was just cool. It was a cool thing to see the sheriffs praying over somebody. So
the other thing too is exposed them to services at the church. And law enforcement is a manly man's field, and to admit that there's problems in a family or you have a child with a disability, that's not an in thing to do in the law enforcement field. So they've now, when they're here all the time, they see the services we offer, the prayer room. They hear about all the classes that we do at midweek, and so we're starting to see some of those guys and their families start to avail themselves of some of those services, which is that's what we want. So
it's cool. Okay, so let's talk about door access. Door access, it comes at a price tag of $1 million. So let's just start there. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
No, I'm working on a project right now to lock our staff areas. Any place you go now, any building, any office, you can't just walk into the staff area. And so we're here. We've got 200 doors or something, and the church is wide open. So now I'm working on a plan. It will be costly because of the size of this campus, but the things you have to think about is, one, are you protecting your staff? 70% of incidents at church happen during the week. I would have thought it was the opposite. I would have thought it was weekends, but it's not. It happens during the week. And, it's a lot of domestic issues, things like that. So, and divorce rate inside the church is as high as outside the church. So there's a lot of same issues that they have to deal with. So, so protecting the staff during the week, because we don't have a lot of police around then. It's just myself and another guy who are the only guys who are armed who are here during the week. And so the more we can secure the staff, the better I feel about it. So you want to protect their lives. And the other thing, too, is just from door access, like we talked about earlier, is allowing people into spaces they shouldn't be, but then protecting all your equipment. I mean, you guys have got millions of dollars of gear in most of these churches. And, being smart about who can get where. And there are cheap systems you can get at Home Depot with just, you put in, a 4-number code or 4-letter code or something like that. You can start. It doesn't have to be, we're doing a centralized system. You don't have to have a centralized system. You can start simple, but just keep those places secure. So.
Yeah, I think even just back home, just 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with my team about, I was walking through the lobby one day, and I saw that the cleaning crew had left a couple of the doors to the auditorium open. And so I brought my guys together and said, hey, anytime we see those doors open, we need to make sure that we're being diligent about closing them and keeping them closed. And if someone comes and talks to you and yells at you for closing the door behind them, come and talk to me. But we need to make sure that we're securing our areas. So instead of investing, if you can't afford to invest in a centralized door access system, just start with your door locks. Every door is going to have a door lock or should have a door lock. So. Yeah,
especially the auditoriums. And even create one door that's easy to get in and out, like the production and programming are always going in and out of the auditorium all week long doing stuff, and I constantly find this one door unlocked. You know which door it is, too. Unlocked all the time. And it just drives me nuts because there's so much good stuff behind the door. And so, that was when we started this plan for this. That was going to be the first door that we do, is that one, so that the guys just walk up, tag, go in, and I know that door is secure when they come. Because they unlock the door. Because you have to unlock it manually, then you have to relock it, and they always forget the going back the other way piece, and so the door is.
It's hard to remember, Brian.
It is hard to remember, yeah.
So yeah, okay. Let's see. Scenario examples. So bad weather. Let's see, fire. Yeah. Do you have scenario examples for all that, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody's weather's different. We're obviously open for tornadoes here, so that's a big thing. And it's understanding your facility. What are your safe zones? So thankfully we've got a huge campus with a lower level. We can get everybody down there. But again, it's once you have a bad weather potential, then it's what are the protocols that are in place? Who's moving? What people and where are they moving them to? And the other issue, especially on the weekends, is kids. Who's managing the kids? Where are they going? How are you keeping the parents separate from them? So those are the things you need to really plan out. Or what are the routes for getting people to your safe zones? To your and then who's going to do that? And then also to the monitoring. And so there's a couple of us that have several apps, and we're monitoring weather all the time. We're obviously watching it when we're not in service, but then we have apps that notify us so that we're ready to go. And this goes back to the cooperation and communication between teams. If we know there's something coming, we'll let the guest team know, we'll let production know, our team will know, the campus care team will know, so that everybody knows there's a potential event coming, so that everybody's ready. If they need to, they're ready to act fast.
Yeah.
Fire, obviously, you can't do anything. When fire happens, it happens. Although what we have done is we've bought a 90-second delay. So when the alarm goes off here, before we sound the horns in the room, we have 90 seconds to locate it. And, the sprinkler, it'll tell us exactly what sprinkler head is there. And you got people running to find out, is it a fire? Is it, we had a problem with spiders walking in front of the sensors, setting them off all the time. So, is it a spider? Is it, what is it? Because I don't want to empty that room, and the pastors don't want me emptying that room if it's a spider walking through there. So.
So wait. So sorry, this is new for me. So you bought a 90-second delay for your fire alarm system
internally.
Huh.
So before we pull the horn,
yeah.
Most systems are set up so that as soon as it's detection, horn goes. So we've worked with local fire department again, and we've said, they're coming.
Yeah.
So as soon as
So the fire truck rolls no matter
they're
what.
rolling, they're not waiting for us. But then internally, before I pull the horns in that room, we got 90 seconds to figure out, is it real or isn't it? And then and that way too, everybody's set then. Production's been alerted, guest service has been alerted, everybody's on notice, so they're ready, is it a fire or not? And then everybody's holding their breath, and then if it is, they're ready to go. Everybody's in that mood. And in the meantime, all the guest hosts are letting everybody know, hey, potential, be ready, so everybody's getting lined up and ready, and it's either a false alarm or we're going.
And so is that a physical hardware piece? Or
yeah, it's what they call trouble shunt on the alarm system. So you put it into that mode, and we have to let the fire department know that we're doing that.
Got it.
Yeah. But the other thing too, so we've set up a channel on our radio system for the fire trucks when they're coming in too, that we can tell them it's a false alarm, so they can back it down a little, because we've had them come in the road a few times, hot and heavy, and bounce off the road, and it was not a fire. So it does help with that situation too.
That's cool. It's great. Okay, so and this is your this is the main floor fire evacuation plan.
Yep.
Anything you want to talk to us about that,
Well,
Brian?
just it's where's everybody's going, and then you've got all the different exits are numbered, and then you've got the coordinators who's in charge of what section, so that those people know where they're going, what they're doing, and they have to be ready for every different scenario. It could be in the back, could be in the middle, could be in the front right, could be in the the left rear, and so they've got every one of these maps then has a third, fourth, and fifth layer to it. So depending on where the fire is, they're going to map 3, 4, or 5, that kind of thing. So fire's left rear, so you're doing map 3, and everybody's going out a different way, and that's part of the thing. The guest hosts, like they get together before every service, what's happening in the weekend, but they review all this stuff on a weekly basis. They'll go over one element. So again, it's the more you want them to understand this stuff like they know their name, so that it's automatic. When something triggers, they're ready to go. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So practice.
So this would be more of an internal type piece as opposed to a slide that you would put up on the screens to help direct people.
Correct.
Got it.
And then we have whoever is the producer down in the booth in the front, they have, or whoever, if it's in the booth, wherever they are, they have a statement saying, and before the horn goes, then they'll say, we have a fire in the facility, we're going to start evacuation. Please do not attempt to get your kids. They've already been evacuated to a safe zone, just trying to minimize some of that. But they're going to hear is fire, blah, 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 and they're running for their kids, So we try to do that, try and alleviate some of that. And then as soon as that's done, then the horn goes.
Yeah,
So.
cool. All right, let's see, what else?
Well, then you've got, active shooter. And, that one, especially in a facility this size, is so hard. I've got 5 services going on at the same time throughout this building, between all the the main stage, the 2 youth ministries, CASA, and then the 8, Promised Land and Promised Land, our kids ministries, all over the place. So, the feds are now changing their mind to, it used to be lock down, and now it's more evacuate.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the 25 years of data in active shooters, the majority of people were killed were people who stayed. No one has died trying to evacuate. They get wounded, but they haven't died. So they just learned from the raw data that it's better to get people moving. And as someone who shoots, it's hard to hit a moving target. I mean, it's hard enough hitting a stationary target when you're standing in the alley, doing your practicing. So you're trying to move something, and the body has to do. There's like 5 motions or activities the body has to go through to actually, fire. You have to see the target. You have to get the, there's 5 things you have to do. So if you can throw something at them, yell at them, do something to disturb them, they have to start over again, and that buys you time. And so, anything you can do to distract if there's a shooter in place. And then again, we're just trying to get people out of there. The training video I use all the time. We do it once a year with all the ministries. I walk around and do it at all the regional sites. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. Many of you probably heard of it. It was developed, I think it was Kansas City and Homeland Security, and it's probably one of the better ones out there. And we do it over and over again because I want people, again, like they know their name. If they hear gunshots, I'm running, I'm hiding, or I'm fighting. That you just want that. They need to know what they're going to do. And then it talks about, in the video, know your area. If you're in this area, where are you going? What are you going to do? So be prepared. In a facility that's any of our churches, they're so big, they're so spread out, you cannot protect everybody all the time. So everybody kind of has to be ready to deal with that themselves. So.
Yeah, I think in an active shooter situation, it's important to, because the idea would be to evacuate the people as fast as possible, make sure that you as a tech team are supporting that as best as possible. So, full lights up in the auditorium.
That's why Troy came up with last.
Yep.
If there's if there's an incident, lights up,
yep.
Audio out, shades up, and TV off.
Yeah, there's I read quite a bit of industry, like concert industry forums and stuff like that. So there's quite a bit of conversation after the Las Vegas shooting about whether or not the lighting operator should have put up the blinder lights that illuminated the area or not. Keep the lights down so the shooter can't see the targets. Well, it's like, if you're trying to get people out of there, how are you helping the people to get out of that environment as best as possible? So I think the other thing to think through is maybe not necessarily for an active shooter situation, but for fire and for weather. What can you do to be able to communicate the information that people need on your screens? So if you have screens, utilize them. For an active shooter situation, probably not going to be, put up a slide, evacuate. That's going to be. Yeah. But for every other situation, what are you doing to be able to communicate as best as possible for people to get out of the situation?
And then the other thing is, I'm sure you guys have all been through this, in loss of power, what equipment do you still have on? You have your 2 standby mics that are running off a generator, some room lights, that kind of stuff. So because if you lose everything, you're going to have to evacuate the facility. So what equipment do you have hooked up to a backup generator so that you can still conduct some kind of evacuation in a meaningful way if it's just loss of power? Especially for some of the church our size, we got 7,000 people in there breathing and sucking up all the oxygen, and if we've lost power and we don't have any air exchange going on, it won't take long before we have a bad air mix in there. So that's one of the reasons we need to get people out of there, is because you're going to have a bad air mix pretty quick in there with that many people breathing. So. Yeah.
One of the resources that I'm still kind of going through is, so there's a book called the Event Safety Guide.
We use that.
Well, it's really for concerts and stuff like that, and it goes over everything from if you're doing an outside festival and all that kind of stuff. So I'm maybe partway through it, but this is so far it seems to be a good resource just for us to think through protocols. So it's the Event Safety Guide. Subtitle is A Guide to Health, Safety, and Welfare at Live Entertainment Events in the United States. And it's created by the Event Safety Alliance, so ESA. So there's actually an alliance out there now, just started in the last probably 5 years maybe, and they do various trainings. So I'm on their mailing list, and just to keep abreast as to what's going on. So the Event Safety Alliance is a pretty good resource.
The other thing I just thought about too, we're a site for Red Cross and health services and things like that, so they know our facility too. So they've come out, so they've looked at our site to say, all right, if we have, when the bird flu thing was coming out, we were going to be a vaccination site if they needed it. So we've had them out. They've looked at our site, so they know it, which then just gives me comfort that if we needed them here, they already know our site. So being as a site that they could use also benefits you. If you ever need them on your site, they really know the place, so that helps. So.
Cool. All right, last scenario, and then we'll get into Q&A here, is just outside events. So how many of you guys do like outside events throughout the course of the year? Yeah, okay. So at Willow and at Cherry Hills, we do a big event for Father's Day. So just as you're doing those outside events, make sure that you're thinking through safety and security for those events. We do a security meeting and a safety meeting leading up to that. So I don't know if there's anything for...
Yeah, I was going to say, we do the fire safety meeting. We used to remember that. Then we get everybody together and just go over what's happening, and what are the resources we have in place, and what do you need to be thinking about, what's different from a normal weekend, that kind of thing. So, and I don't know if you, even if anybody that's using our building, our people are still involved. We never let the facility be used without our team involved in some way. Just even if we did have people, here, like we do graduations. And, I think we have some production team, but I've got my security team here. We've got the guest host team here, because people know how to move. If there's a fire, we need to make sure people are out of here. It's still your property. You're still responsible, even though someone else is using it. So.
Cool. All right. Anything else before Q&A?
Now, I was just going to say that from a resource perspective, obviously FBI, DHS have great websites. You can Google this stuff. There's tons of stuff out there. There's a program that we're involved with called Secure Church, and there's like a Chicago chapter. There's different chapters, and it's just, there's probably like 300 churches in the area. It was started by a couple of former FBI guys, and just that were part of churches and realized. And so we get together once a quarter. We get in speakers, what's happening in the world. And then some of the ministries will get up and share some of their best practices. It's just a great learning event. It helps getting security people or that kind of minded people together every now and then to see what's happening in other churches. Again, to just to share the wealth of knowledge that you've gained and what you can do. So,
cool. All right, questions? Go for it. Yeah.
So going to the tech arts world, or whatever you want to call it, that's the things that we do.
Yeah.
I understand the outside threats, and they're big. We have a lot of inside threats, actually. Not threats in the sense of shooters, but just danger. I see all the time in our church because we're sort of spread out. I'll go into a corner of a hallway, and the emergency door is now blocked by a wonderful kid
Yeah.
poster.
Yeah.
Trying to get volunteers. Last week, our fire door was blocked by a very nice table display.
Yeah.
If it has to go down, it's going to be banging. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of internal things we're setting up things hanging things from the beams. A nice sign made of 4x8 plywood that's quite heavy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I tend to look at it as a guillotine myself.
Yeah.
but
Sure.
That's because I'm a state guy. So there's a lot of that just seems to be happening in a lot of churches because they're volunteers and active people. I don't know. Our safety team is looking for shooters, but I'm looking for things falling off.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
and that's most likely going to happen more than an active shooter. Something's going to somebody going to trip or fall. They're going to find something locked where they need to get out there. That's where you need to communicate with your operations team or whoever is in charge of that stuff to make sure. Somebody needs to be walking around and checking the entrances to make sure that they're all open. We even found a couple of ours had chains on them because the lock wasn't working right. So instead of just getting the lock fixed, they put a chain on the door, and it was in a boiler room. That if it caught on fire, it was the guy's only way out. So it was like, okay, let's get that fixed. But you're right. That's the thing I have to. That's part of my job. Is I'm walking around and looking those hidden stairways where it's supposed to be a fire exit, and you open up the door, and the kids ministry is now piled everything from Sunday's event there, and no one could get out unless you were a mountain climber. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I know one thing. I have tried to insert myself in as many meetings and as not because I like meetings, but just because there are kids ministry folks. They're not thinking about that kind of stuff, but some of us that have that mindset are. So how are we able to involve ourselves in those conversations to assist? So even down to like we change our lobby display, probably once a month or something like that. And so I've inserted myself into that conversation to say, hey, instead of buying that piece of fabric from Joann's Fabrics that's not fire retarded, let's buy it from a place that is fire retarded so that if the place does go up in flames, we're not adding to the fire. And I also make it a conscious effort to walk the facility as much as possible, just to be keeping an eye out on that kind of stuff. And then I just shoot. We have a facilities work ticket system. So if I see something that needs to be fixed, say something is blocking a door, I submit a ticket to the facilities team, and then I know that, hey, it's being taken care of, or at least it's on the radar, and then it's kind of out of my hands, not because I want to shuck the responsibility, but I'm at least telling somebody about it.
The other thing about having a great relationship with the fire department is if you see people getting sloppy, I'll tell the chief to come over and have his guys walk the building. And then when it's the fire department saying this has to get fixed, it's not me, then it's like it gets fixed.
Right. Yep.
So that little outside influence does help sometimes.
So I think, it's, again, how you involve yourself in the communication process, because like I said, I do not need another meeting on my schedule. But if I'm the one thinking about it, and if I'm the one that maybe has the tools and the resources to assist, how can I be of service? So.
Can I say how that's communicated is important?
Sure, absolutely.
These things fall in the cracks.
Yeah.
There's a protocol, not a protocol, but a system of training called High Reliability Organization. My wife works in the hospital system.
Yeah.
I got this training, and she brought it home, and I go, we're a church, and we have some of the most important information.
Totally.
Somebody gives you a contact, a
Sure.
And we're so volunteer oriented that, oh gosh, we got a million grabs.
Yep.
And that needs to, you can solve a couple of problems at once. The safety,
Yep.
also the care of the sheep.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah.
Question back there?
Yeah, I work at a college, and on the door of our risk manager's office, we have a sign that says "Please be paranoid."
Yep, that's.
It paid to be paranoid. That's
I
great.
don't know if any of you have done Enneagram. I'm a 6, which is, you're totally paranoid all the time. I'm anxious all the time about everything, so I'm a perfect risk manager.
I have a question, but comment on your thing. If we're handing anything, it has to be done for a work order.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
But you mentioned, volunteers who, what did you say, 47 volunteers?
Yeah.
for security.
Yes.
Two questions related to dollars on this. Okay. Do you have police officers on site, uniformed police officers during services?
We do now.
So
We
real
do-
quick. So sorry.
Yeah.
The question was about on-site police officers and whether or not we have them, right?
So. So
And if
we
you
have to
do-
pay.
okay.
We have to pay the police, and that comes out of the traffic budget because to get people in and out of the facility, they have to work all the traffic lights. So we have to pay the police for that. But we were paying them for a 4-hour stint, and then they would do the lights and then go back to the office. And then when I got the relationship with the chief, I'm like, I'm paying you. Have them come in and have coffee. So that's how I work that. So it's not costing me from a security. It's not costing my security budget anything. It's we have to pay these guys to run the traffic. So while they're here, I'm going to give them some coffee and I'm going to get their presents.
The other
Here.
question is, when you rent out the facility for graduation or something,
Yep.
you bring your volunteers in, are you doing chargeback? Even though they're volunteers, are you charging back?
We are.
Mhm.
So, and here's the trick with a church. There's the ugly word called UBIT, unrelated business income tax, which no church wants to pay. So we only charge the high school, or when who's the old group that came in, the Gaithers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gaithers.
Anybody comes in like that, we can only charge them what it cost us, so that we have no gain, we have no income on that. So, we've developed the whole system on what it costs to put a production team together, a traffic team, security team, all that stuff. Even though, my thing is feeding the guys. That's really what it is, the guys and gals. So.
Yeah.
Charge back, is it just their wage, or are you adding in benefits? You probably have to add in 30-40% benefits.
Oh, yeah, it's whatever if it's someone, we're paying someone $30 an hour, and then it's whatever it costs us to charge them. So you can charge them that. Again, you want to keep it as close to break even as possible, so you don't have to pay any taxes on that. So.
And we do the same thing. We rent out our facility for local school graduations and even outside concerts. And just as part of the rental of the facility, we include the cost of the sheriff and just say, hey, we're automatically, if you want to rent the facility for X amount of people, here's a line item for the sheriff. It's going to cost you $300 for a sheriff for 4 hours or whatever like that.
Yeah, if we're going to have major people coming in and out, we got to work the lights. They're going to pay for
Yep.
whatever police coverage it is
Yep.
to work the lights.
And if they
So-
have a problem with it, there's a couple other facilities down the road they can rent. So, bye-bye. All right, next.
Yeah, I have a question related to radios.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, do you have, real quick, do y'all have EMS on site, paramedics on site,
S-
as part of police?
Yeah, so the question is talking about two-way radios and then whether or not we have EMS.
Like, is your entire security team on radio, and then RLB on radio with that security team?
Yep.
Go for it.
Okay, so yeah, our entire we have a huge radio system here. So every ministry has them. Everybody's got their own channel, and they know which channel the security's on. So if they need to, they can reach us. My entire team has radios on. We've got all earpieces in and stuff, and we have volunteer medics that are on call for every service. Any event over 1,000 people, we have volunteer medics here. And then, so they're here and they do the initial triage until the paramedics get here. We're really blessed right now because the paramedics in our area, their zone is so large, they're using an office in our facility as their go point. So because we're down at the southeast quadrant of it, so they're housed here. We have a vehicle here all the time. We've got 2 people here. So before you've finished the 911 call, we've got 2 people, right in our lobby dealing with it. So it's an unusual thing, but it's again, if you get a chance, if the local paramedics are looking for a place to house their people out of, take it. It's great having those people right on site. But yeah, so we use radios. Again, I said we use Slack. The other thing I just did was we we're using Alert Media. So Alert Media is a system, an app out there you can purchase. So it does email, text, and phone. So that if during the week if something happens, I can immediately send out a text, email, and phone call to everybody that says we have an incident here, something's going on there. So the whole staff is, because we don't have a PA system throughout the whole facility. So it's the only way I can let all the staff know that there's something going on immediately. And then it's handy, like we get snow. So, if you got to close the church, you can let the staff know, hey, don't come in, work from home because there's too much snow here.
Yep. Yeah, and we do the same thing. We have a couple of two-way radios that everybody is on. I actually, as the TD, I actually have an intercom interface to two-way radio. So without even taking out of my intercom headset, I'm able to monitor the radio traffic. But I also have a two-way radio at my desk in case I need to go mobile. So if there's a problem, fire evacuation, I'm grabbing the radio and I'm out. So, but I'm able to monitor the radio traffic of two channels. So, yeah. All right. What other questions? Yeah.
We're currently in the process of rebooting our security team. It's not a good thing, and now we're trying to make it right. But one of the big things that the decision makers are hung up on is the concealed carry with volunteers. So, I guess my question is, how does Willow Creek handle that? Because right now it's like, well, who's liable?
Right.
The church doesn't want liability.
So the question is on concealed carry, and how do you handle that as a church? First thing I do is my liability carrier. We have an endorsement on our policy. They know we have armed people here. So you want to make sure that your insurance carrier knows and that you have the proper endorsement for having armed people on site. So that's part of my annual renewal. I have to let them know how many people are here, that kind of thing. And then it all comes down to the training that we do for them, the tactical training, and then the monthly trainings we're going to be doing so that we know that they're pretty proficient and we trust them. And if we don't trust them, we're not going to let them carry. And the issue, too, I don't know what Colorado is or some of your states are, but, Illinois' concealed carry law was passed based on church shootings. So churches are not an exempt facility like schools and public buildings and all that stuff are. So if we wanted to not have concealed carry from the public in here, we'd have to put a sticker on 250 doors.
Same thing for Denver.
And I went to the elders and we kind of agreed. I didn't want people thinking about guns every time they walked into the church. I did not want that big red ugly sticker there. I wanted to come in and just think about church. So we didn't put the stickers up so anybody can really carry in here. Which is a bit scary. I mean, everybody on my team knows each other. The police know who we are. Matter of fact, we even have sashes. I carry a sash in my back pocket that I can throw around me that says security on it. It's reflective, so if we're in a shooting, the police know who we are, and other people with guns know who we are, that kind of thing too. So, but really, if your insurance carrier knows, then you're protected, and they will defend the church if something happens. And there's a balance in terms of liability exposure, in terms of how much training you do versus not enough. Sometimes you can write procedures and protocols, and you can back yourself into a corner, and you can make yourself more liable than if you have none at all. So you really have to create that balance in terms of what do we feel is the necessary training for those guys and a refresher. I mean, if you look at the police, they only have to shoot once a year to get certified. So we're having our guys do it at least quarterly. So I feel we're even ahead of that. So,
yeah.
Similar question. Do you say anything to your members about concealed carry if you're not on security?
No, we didn't. We just, the law was passed, and we just let that sleeping dog lie, kind of thing. So.
It's actually because I in my exchange with the local sheriff a couple weeks ago, I asked him about the concealed carry thing and just what the local law enforcement thoughts were on it. And he actually said that they welcome it, that from a point of the run, hide, fight thing, if your congregation, if there's people in your congregation that are carrying a weapon, and even if they're not on the security team, but yet they are then able to assist with diffusing the situation, he's like, bring it.
National average is 6 to 12 minutes before police arrive
Yep.
after a 911 call. Most of these incidents are over in 90 seconds. So, the police welcome it because you're right. I mean, if somebody there can stop it or at least minimize what's happening before they get there. And the other thing you have to remember, too, is no medics are coming in until the place is secure. So, a lot of these instances, people have bled out because no one can get in there to deal with them. So I have 20 of my guys have just gone through trauma training. We have 7 bags that we carry that are specifically all about gunshot wounds, knife wounds, all that stuff. We have specific types of things that deal with chest wounds and all that stuff, so that we're ready, that if we have to deal with a pastor or somebody around us or one of our team, we're ready at least to be able to do that, because we know no one's coming in until the place is secure.
How much time do we have, Julie?
3 minutes.
3. Awesome. So great. All right. Any other questions?
I can't hear you.
So the question.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question was about incidents in the parking lot and injuries and stuff too. I mean, if you guys call us on the radio, we'll be out there to help. So, usually I find out about it the next day when I get an incident report on my desk that you filled out that, we've had. And that's one of the things too, is incidents in the parking lot, if it's just 2 congregants, you get the police involved, you try to stay out of it because you don't want to get involved from a liability perspective. If 2 people, just ran into each other, you want to keep the church out of it as much as you can. So, but yeah, security team should be out. If you need the security team, you just got to call and we'll be there. So.
Cool. Was this helpful, guys? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Your delay on your fire alarm, how is that initial notification? If you've got like a computer system that you do it.
Yeah, so the question was about the delay on the fire alarm system. So what happens is we have someone who sits on our trades team, and they monitor the building. So the entire building is controlled, lights, heat, all that stuff, from a control room, and then that has the fire panel there. So if anything triggers, that guy who's sitting there, or gal, is going to get notification right away. Here it is, there it is, what head it is, where it's in the building. They then will notify, several of us, and then people just start running and trying to figure out. But and it's the whole protocol. He notifies us, then there's several people who then notify production, guest services, all that, so that everybody knows there's a potential fire in the building. So.
And from what my understanding of the shunt mode, somebody has to be watching the panel in order to do the shunt mode. Is
Yes,
that accurate?
that's one of the deals with the fire department, that if it's like a fire watch program. So if you go into trouble shunt mode, you have to have some kind of fire watch program that the fire department's going to let you live with, that kind of thing. So.
All right. Any other questions? Is this helpful? Anything that we could have changed? Yes, go.
Just one final question. If you could just run us through the acronym for the production team again real quick.
Yep. The acronym for the production team was LAST. So lights up, audio off, shades, because I don't know if you've been in our main auditorium, we have shades. So it's shades up, and then TV off, because we do live streaming TV, and so we want to get that out.
So that's okay. So that's good to clarify. So it's the streaming TV shuts down. That
Right.
feed shuts down. It's not the LED screens.
No,
go
not the
off.
mags.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. That's good. All right. Anything that we could have done differently, or that you guys would have liked to have heard about, or us talk about, so we can learn? There's a survey that'll come out. So yeah, go for
This
it.
was great. One comment, church of 50 people.
Sure.
Right.
How do I scale it down?
Yeah. Totally.
There's a lot here I'm taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's where volunteers, and every church is going to have a police officer or somebody with some kind of experience that if you can find them, they will find other people that they will trust. So it doesn't, like I've been to some churches that have $1 million security budget, and it's, all paid for and everything. My budget is $7,000 a year for my security team, and I got 48 guys. So that's where I'm feeding them to keep them happy. That's, that's basically what I've got. So.
Yep. And I think even, talking about the door access system, like that, you can spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on a computerized door access system, but how do you boil it down to the basics of just...
Yeah, you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and
Yeah.
just secure those doors that could create a problem, or where people can get access to the equipment.
Yep.
So.
Cool. All right. I think that's it, guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.